Hello and welcome to our midweek meaningful conversation. We're a day late. I wonder if anyone will notice. Yeah.
I noticed.
If you are joining us for the first time, thank you. Thank you for showing up and listening to our midweek conversation. We are 3 YouTube vloggers. We've got Paul from Narrowboat Life Unlocked and Maxine from Never Too Late, Our Journey. And me, I'm Lisa from A Life Full of Meaning. Now, when we get together midweek, we don't chat YouTube, we don't chat vlogging, we just have a good old conversation. And you're invited to join us, to come take part and comment or listen. Yeah, you are welcome. And if you are returning, thank you. Thank you for coming back. So this week, we are talking about regrets. And to be honest, makes me a bit panicky just thinking about it. But before we get on to that, let's have a catch up. Paul, what have you been up to this week?
Well, we finally managed to get the boat into a marina. We had a 4-hour journey yesterday and we had to go through a tunnel. But just before I went in the tunnel, I was on my own. Luckily, I had help an hour later through the lock because they'd arranged to meet me further down the canal. But I just stepped off the boat onto the lock landing and I slipped on the moss and ended up in the canal. First time, bit of a shock. But yeah, I was fine. And I laughed about it afterwards. But yeah, my boots are still drying out by the fire.
That's not what you need, but I'm glad to hear you're in the marina. Are you plugged in? Are you plugged into Shoreline?
Yeah, I don't have to worry about power. It was really good, and it was really funny this morning that I went to put the washing machine on. Thought I don't have to run the engine to put the washing machine on. So yeah, that's good.
You've got all mod cons. You've got all mod cons. That's brilliant. I'm glad you're in for the coldest part of the year. So, yeah, that's excellent. Maxine, how's your week been?
It's been quite a busy one, really. I've been by myself most of the week because Steve's been at the boat or at his brother's. So I've actually done some work, and I've been doing lots of baking as well for Christmas. So it's getting and trying to organise more bits in the house.
Excellent. So is everything still on track for February, isn't it?
Yeah. Nice. Looks like we'll move out the house in January. So we're going to go and find a cottage for a month. But nice. Everything's ready for February.
All good. Well, we said goodbye to Nutshell on Sunday and moved into. Do you know what? I kept thinking, like in the morning, I was like, this is the last time I'm putting the kettle on in Nutshell. The last time I'm doing this, the last time. And then I thought, am I sad? And then I thought, yes, I'm sad. And then I thought, no, you're not sad. And I was like, what am I feeling? And then I was like, I'm feeling thankful. Yeah. I'm feeling really thankful for those last 4 years. But the strangest thing was that where Nutshell's new owners came to pick her up and we helped them through the Buckby flight was the exact spot on exactly the same day 4 years ago. I mean, and it wasn't until, the day that we knew it was close, but our daughter got married on the 25th of November. And the Nutshell had to be brought through King's Lock on the day of her wedding, and then they were shutting it for like 3 months, so we had to get Nutshell through. So basically a boat mover had brought Nutshell to that point, and that's how we know exactly to the day, because it was like Chloe's wedding, and then we met the boat mover on the Tuesday, and the date was the same day. I mean, that just blew my mind. It felt like it was a part of a plan that I like never knew was going on. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It was like you will pick up the boat. You will pick up the boat on this day. You'll sell it 4 years later, and I just loved it. I just love that synchronicity. So so we're in the house now. We're proper house dwellers.
How does that feel?
Well, it feels great. It feels warm, and we've got electricity, and we've spent the whole week unpacking though. I have done some baking, and I have been picking up my grandson from school. So, but basically unpacking. So it's been a bit dull, but yes. Yeah, no, none of that, and it's like everything's solid, nothing moves.
It may take you a while to get used to it. I don't know. You'll probably find this, Maxine. After being on the boat for a week or two, I used to step into a shop and I'd sway. I think
yeah. That's the thing, isn't it? That's the thing. When we very first had our smaller boat, we used to get that all the time, and I'd be walking around and I'd be like this. It's called land sickness or something. I googled it. It's a proper thing. So
we need a nice cruise to get used to that. A month-long cruise.
Yeah, that's what you need. That's what you need. So, shall we jump in and talk about regrets? So, Maxine, you suggested this one, didn't you? Yeah. And before we talk about our actual regrets, shall we talk about like regrets and how we look at regrets? Do we have them? Do we have lots of them? Or what regrets mean to us? Do you want to start, Maxine?
Yeah, of course. I try not to have regrets, even though yes, I've got a couple, but because the reason I look at it saying that if you do have lots of regrets, then your life hasn't been fulfilling and you wouldn't be where you are today, because you need to change things. If you've got so many regrets, then I think you need to change things, and obviously things you wouldn't be where you are. So yes, I have a couple, but mainly no, because I think it's a negative, and I try and keep everything as positive as possible. And so I think your life, if you keep regretting everything all the time, you'll be quite sad and not do anything. You just like basically plod along, and I think that's a waste of your life. So you've got to look for as much positivity and change things. And if you're really not happy about something, change it. Definitely don't just keep going doing it, because then your life will just be one big regret.
Yeah, good point. Paul, when we say regrets, what does that bring up for you?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a couple of regrets, but again, same as Maxine, the valuable life lessons, aren't they? I think if we don't learn from them and move on, you don't want it to torture you for the rest of your life. So I think we've all got regrets in life, but yeah, they are valuable life lessons, and we move on from that and hopefully don't make that same mistake again, if it can be classed a mistake, if it's a life lesson. Yeah.
Well, I like to find ways to just make myself feel better about life, really. A bit like you both. Regrets don't play a big role in my life. And a few years ago, I can't remember when I started doing it, I think it was about the time where we sold the house. I started to see things in my life as experiments. And the thing is, with an experiment, you detach yourself from the outcome. So if I look at something as an experiment, let's do this, I then can look back and say, well, that didn't work. That showed me that that's not a good thing to do. So I sort of see life as more of an experiment, and I sort of detach from outcomes. Basically, I don't blame myself. That's what I do. I let myself off.
I like that.
All out of your hands.
I think they are valuable life lessons, because if you look back and you're like, that didn't turn out how I wanted. If you come to it with a good mindset, going forwards, you can change things. Although I've just thought an example where that wouldn't work. But is it a regret? So let me share it with you. This isn't a regret. In fact, I've not even thought about it since we started, until we just started talking. So years ago, I I was involved in like a big international award. I mean, it was crazy. I was even there to begin with. And in the absolute final, I didn't win. I came second. I was gutted. I was gutted for a few days. I really was. Now, I don't sort of look back and regret not winning, but I was just thinking as we were talking, that's something that I could do nothing about that outcome. And yet in those days that followed, I felt like real regret. Like I was really sad that I didn't win after putting so much energy into the whole process. So I think some things you can look at a situation and you can say, right, that didn't work out for me. I'm going to do it differently. But then just like that competition, there's some things that you can have absolutely no control over. And the only thing you can control is the way you think about something, isn't it? So, yeah.
Do you think that made you stronger though, Lisa, and more determined? Or was it just something that really ate at you for a few days?
Oh, man, it really ate at me for a few days. I was so sad. I was so sad. It was the biggest thing I'd ever done in my whole life. There was 3 people from each continent, right? This is how big it was, right? 3 people from each continent. And then we all came together at the poshest, swankiest. It was organized by Cartier, right? This is like, it was a whole nother level. It was massive. And when I didn't win, I was so sad. And Glenn and our daughter Naomi Naomi was with me. She'd been with me. The competition ended in this whole week in France, and Naomi was with me. She'd come over. That's my eldest daughter. Glenn had driven over, and then basically I didn't win. All the way home, I didn't speak to anyone. I was so sad because I felt I'd failed.
But you told us this story before, Lisa, and we were gobsmacked, and it was something to be so proud of that you came second, and you're one of only 3 people in the whole of Europe to be nominated. I think
I was gutted.
It's like being close to winning an Oscar and being nominated and not getting it. And
I was gutted. Anyway, took me about 2 days until I really had to give myself a stern talking to. I was just like, no, come on. And
but that whole experience sounds amazing. It's a shame, really, isn't it, that it was I don't.
It was tainted. I mean, anyway, that's not even like a proper regret. So have we? I mean, I know this is going out to the internet, but I feel like we're among friends. So I'm quite happy to share a proper regret. And I mean, I don't want you to feel like if you're not comfortable sharing, please don't share anything that, you're not comfortable with. But I am going to share a proper, real regret. And we're amongst friends. So shall I get into it? Right.
Yeah, I'm bracing
So we were very fortunate as our family was growing. So Glenn started his business and grew that business quickly and successfully for about 10 years from nothing, just under, £1 million a year turnover with very few staff. He worked really hard. He hated it. He absolutely disliked what he did intently. It was very stressful. The deadlines and it was just a really stressy industry, and it gave us a really good living. And I think when I look back now, I can see that a lot of the things that we did, especially for Glenn, were to make him feel better for spending so much of his time in such an awful, in such a stressful environment. So you know, Glenn bought lots of fast cars. You know, we had big motorhomes. We had a great standard of living. We spent, basically, Glenn earned it, we spent it. We had a, you know, a great life. And then 2008 came around, and Glenn almost lost everything, and it was only down to, you know, his sheer willpower not to lose everything that it built up, that we managed to come out of that relatively unscathed. But the biggest regret that I have is twofold. Number one, it's that I didn't learn about money management, about saving, essentially. That is part one of my biggest regret. Part two of my biggest regret is that I didn't teach my children those skills. I couldn't have taught them at the time. I didn't have them. I didn't have those skills. But I'd say my biggest regret is that I didn't teach my children those skills. They're learning them now, just as I've learned them now, but they're learning them the hard way. And that is my biggest regret. So yeah, that's mine, all out there.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I've got to get my head around it, actually, because I've forgotten what I was going to say now, Lisa. You can go first, Maxine.
Oh, yeah, I can. I thought, really, obviously I sent the thing in, but I've been really thinking about this, and I think my biggest regret is that, what is it? Well, 12 years ago, I didn't get the help that I needed then. And I struggle. I went through, I mean, you both know, and I'm very open with, I lost my daughter. I got divorced. I lost my daughter. I changed my job. I got divorced and met a new partner, all within 5 months. And it scripted my head. I didn't think it at the time, but when I look back, and I was constantly poorly, or thought I was poorly. I used to go to the doctors because I'd got a pain and things like that. On the outside, I looked, yes, I was obviously grieving for Liz, but everything else looked absolutely fine. I had a really good job, and everything was brilliant. And I kept thinking, no, I'm all right. And it took, I think it was 3 years before it was my auntie said, you need to go and speak to somebody. Yeah. And I was ready then. And my biggest regret then is if I'd done that a year or even 6 months, then things would have been so much different, and I would be where I am now a lot quicker.
Yeah.
And doing what I love now, because I can now help other people, and so I've got a twofold. If I'd done it quicker, I could have done everything that I'm doing now. And I just think now it's so important for people to realise that don't wait. Go and get help, because it makes such a difference. I mean, my life is completely different now. And so that's my biggest. Obviously, I've got little twin, different ones within there, but that's just life. And if I hadn't, I mean, I could have quite easily said about my previous marriage and things like that, which I regret, and I do when I look back. But then I wouldn't have had Liz and things like that. So you can't regret things like that. No. But that's my biggest, I think, biggest not asking for help when you need it. And I think lots of people do that.
Yeah. Do you think, Maxine, if you hadn't have waited that long, you wouldn't have now you realise the importance of counselling and what you do, sort of made you a stronger person in the end? Although, you wish you had gone back.
I think it probably did, because I learned how to deal with it. But when I just knew, I wasn't ready to be open about it, and I think that was the problem. And my fear was upsetting other people around me. And I think that's the thing you've got to just do. You've got to be selfish, and you've got to go for you now.
Yeah. Sometimes we just don't have what we need to move on, and that can only come from outside, by getting help. And sometimes, we sit in this place of unhappiness, and we just haven't got the skills to get us to move on, because we learn those, don't we? We learn those. And I think I think the stigma of getting help is breaking down. I think where 20 years ago was like a different place. I have been through counselling in my 20s, and it was life changing for me. But there was a lot of stigma then. Mental health wasn't talked about, or well-being, or wellness, or however we want to wrap it up. So that's brilliant. Thanks for sharing that, Maxine. That's really valuable. Thank you.
Lisa, you said, I didn't want to go off on a tangent, but what I was thinking about, you were saying earlier, I've always said financial education in schools would be one of the best things going, because we've got friends who are teachers, and they ask the children, where do you think that money comes from your parents when they go to the bank and it's the hole in the wall? They think it's just free money. And if they've not learned those valuable lessons, they're going to make the same mistakes later in their life, and so are their children. My parents never had a bank account. I didn't even know what a bank account was when I was in high school. Sorry, not high school, but school, savings. And I was taught by business people that always save a minimum of 10% of everything you earn and save it all your life. And if you think what we've earned over our lifetimes, that would be a lot of money, but it's easier said than done, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. A couple of years ago, I was doing lots around sort of money and financial education, and there was this exercise. I can't remember where I found it. I often find things online, or I'll read something, or I'll hear it, and then I'm like, Glenn, this is what we need to do. And he just rolls his eyes, but he goes along with it. And it was like you had to try and work out how much you've earned over your entire life. So similar thing, and you work it out, and you think, where's it gone?
And that compound interest that you would have got over that lifetime as well. It's crazy, isn't it?
It is crazy.
They are talking about teaching it in schools, and I think again, I think that's really important skill to have, isn't it?
Yeah, it touches us all, doesn't it?
Definitely.
Money is an essential part of life. We need it. We might as well learn.
One of the biggest worries in life, can't it?
That's it. They say relationships. It's one of the top things that people argue about, isn't it? Money. So.
The biggest fear is speaking in public, would you believe? Some people would choose to die rather than speak in public, which is just crazy.
Isn't it? Oh, that's crazy. Have I ever told you the story about me speaking in public? I know we're going off onto a bit of a tangent here.
Go on.
So on my 30th birthday, I was quite shy in my 20s. People will not believe that now, but I was really shy, and I didn't, I just wasn't, I was good with a small group of my friends, but anything more than that, I'd panic. So on my 30th birthday, we had a meal in a restaurant with my closest friends. There was probably about 10 friends around the table. And our friend Neil, at the end of the meal, he stood up. He's not scared of speaking in public, and he gave a speech. Happy birthday, Lisa. Blah blah blah. Yeah, everyone's round of applause, and then he goes, Lisa, say a few words, right? And my mouth just went like this. These are 10 of my closest friends, right?
Yeah.
And I could not string anything more than like, thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
I didn't do any more than that. That was it. My brain just went, and my mouth just wouldn't work. So a few years after that, probably about 6 years after that, when I started my business and ended up like on the international stage of like global competitions, I knew, not just I knew, I wanted to be a great speaker. I wanted to be confident to speak to people, public speaking. So a friend of mine at the time said, it's practice. That's all it is. You just got to get out there. You've got to just practice it. I was like, okay. And she said to me, get yourself onto the school assembly circuit. They're always looking for people to go in and talk about stuff in school assemblies. And she said to me, there's nothing like being in front of 200 teenagers that are just like, you know, so disinterested.
Not bothered.
Yeah, she said it's great. So that's what I did. And I told the story of how I started my business, how I had this idea for a game, and then I, you know, made the game, and you know, I shared all of that. And first few times, oh man, it was painful. It was painful, but I did it and I did it and I kept doing it until one day I realized when they, you know, called me up on stage, I breezed up on stage, I told my story, and I realized that I didn't feel fear. And then I went on through my work. You know, I've been, you know, on the news. I've been I've done like Woman's Hour a couple of times on Radio 4. I've been on Chris Evans' radio show. I've done lots of radio. I presented a slot on Ideal World shopping channel. So basically it was practice. It was practice. But yeah, so that's my story of learning to
it just becomes normal, doesn't it? And I think it's just repetition, I say, rather than practice, because my very first magic show, I couldn't eat a meal all day. I was so nervous. And you know, my hands were shaking while I was fastening my shoelaces. But then it just becomes a normal job, and walking out on stage in front of 1,000 people, I find that more relaxing than walking into a room with 10 strangers, because that's my comfort zone. And I think it does become your zone, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
I was the same years ago, and I went on a training course, and they videoed you, and then they watched it then you watched it back, and you thought, oh my god. And at the end of the day, we went through lots of different learnings and everything, and then they videoed you again. And so you could see the difference of where you've come from, and it did make a huge difference. And they give you tips and things like that. And then I used to stand up in front of teams and everything and not have any issues. But to begin with, I used to stand there and jitter, and as you said, Paul, back not eating. I was like that. I used to have bilious attacks and everything, chewing and throwing to the loo. Oh, it was all horrible. But now it doesn't bother me as much. It's not my favourite thing, but I will do it now.
No.
Oh, we were destined to all become vloggers, weren't we?
That
was it.
Talkers.
That we've done before has led us to this point.
Yeah, definitely. Well, you know, some viewers may know a famous magician called Paul Daniels, and he was very, very confident on stage. And he used to work at all the working men's clubs in the Northeast. And he said one day there was a stripper on, and the stripper walked out in a pair of boots and a Viking helmet on. And he said, as long as I go on stage for the rest of my life, I will never look as ridiculous as that man. So
that's good to know. Should we have a look at some of the comments? Thank you. We can see lots of comments coming up, so thank you to everyone who is joining us. I've just seen one from Elaine there. Let me show you that. That's good morning. So lovely to be with you. My biggest regret was not taking up the opportunity to become a nurse. However, it could have been worse. Hugs. Oh, Elaine, I think job ones are difficult, aren't they? Job regrets.
Yeah.
Because you realise that your life could have been like completely different if you'd done that. So Spence here says, my biggest regret is not making the changes I need to make. Sadly, still getting up the courage. Spence, I'd say sometimes being aware of the changes that you need to make is just where you need to be at that time. Just being aware, because from there, then you can make those changes.
And brave.
Yeah, be brave. Break them down, make tiny changes.
And it's never too late, is it? And we're never too old. I think somebody was asking about, was it driving lessons last week? And you know, we know people that went. And I think I our neighbours were saying that their mother, about 70, did a PhD in mathematics or something at age 70 something. So yeah, when it's never too late, is it?
Yeah, that's true. I love this.
That's why the name of the boat's Never Too Late.
Never too late. Wonderful. Pamela, I regret sulking through my 50s thinking my life was over. Now 68, I'm back, loving life.
Brilliant.
Oh, that is such a wonderful comment, Pamela. Thank you.
Anthony will tell you I'm sulking through my 50s. I've always been a sulker.
And do you know what? You know, those 2 days after I lost that competition, I sulked like anything. And I mean, I got fed up with myself. I mean, I was
in a dark place.
didn't like it. Oh, so yeah, so that is Paul.
Yes.
We didn't ask you. Have you got any regrets that you could share?
A couple of big ones, really, and one that I don't think about too much. I suppose being gay was really difficult for me. I knew from an early age that I was, but I felt like I was the only person that was. There was no way you could reach out to anybody as a child. And in school, it was never taught because of Section 28. So it was never discussed. And, you know, I wouldn't say I got bullied in school, but there were, you know, there was a couple of kids that would say, "Are you gay?" And I didn't even know what it meant. And I just wish I had the courage to stand up to those people and be true to myself and not be worried about coming out. But I think that's probably easier now than it was back then. And then my other biggest regret, really, I think I've mentioned this before, that my cousin Linda in America, I used to be really, really close to, and we used to speak to a lot. But when she phoned, we'd normally chat for about an hour. And sometimes she'd leave a message and I'm like, "Oh, I've got to make dinner." You know, I'm thinking to myself, I've got to make dinner, or I've got work to do. I'll call her back tomorrow. And sort of a month or so went by and she'd left this message saying, "Oh, do you remember me, Paul? It's your cousin Linda. Give me a call." And I did. But then a few months later, she was suddenly rushed into hospital and she was in a coma. And I find it difficult now talking about it. I found it really difficult saying goodbye to my cousin Linda, and I regret not having more conversations with somebody that I was so close to. You know, that is a regret. But then it's also a very valuable life lesson that life's short, and what's important to you, it's family and friends and loved ones, and that we should make the most of that. And I think that's why I love this conversation so much, because I think we're all very busy with our own lives, but it does make us once a week get together, and it's not something that we dread. I don't think it's something I really look forward to, thinking it does us good to have that conversation that we started this whole thing for, really, wasn't it?
Yeah,
absolutely. Thanks for sharing that, Paul. I think they're the toughest regrets, aren't they? I have a similar regret with my nan, who I was close to, and I moved closer to her when just after we'd had our second child. Within a couple of years, we had 4 small children, and I found it difficult to get round to her. I used to go every day, and then it became a couple of times a week, and then it was like once a fortnight, and I would always seem so busy, you know, with the kids, and I do regret not making more time to be with my nan in those last you know, couple of years of her life. I think I think, as you say, they are the biggest life lessons that we can have. I try and ring my mum now every day. I started it in lockdown because I couldn't go around and see her. I used to just see her like once a week, and we'd chat maybe once, you know, outside of that. And then in lockdown, I started ringing my mum every day around 10:30, just a morning, you know, how you doing? And I don't find it a chore at all. You know, it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes if you've got something to talk about. And I'm happy, you know, to do that. You know, it's and I think that's one of the lessons, you know, from you know, not taking the time with my nan, that's taught
And
me.
I bet your life's richer for it, Lisa, as well as your mum. So it's twofold, isn't it? You know, it's beneficial for everybody.
Absolutely. I think you know, it's not a chore, you know, it's a nice thing. But as we've said before in weeks gone by, why is it sometimes that even the stuff that we know that's good for us, the stuff that we know makes our life better, we still don't do it, you know? So it's I mean, that's,
I think we've become so busy, don't we, that when we have like an hour to sit down in the evening, it feels like a chore to phone a friend rather than sit in front of the TV and just sort of veg, really, as we say. But it's a weird one, isn't it?
Strange.
Yeah, human behaviour.
Sometimes we can be a bit too selfish with things like that and not reach out to people. I know I'm terrible for doing it and thinking or you don't want to bug them because they're probably doing, you think they're doing something, but they're probably doing, you know, waiting for you to call them or something. It's
strange, isn't it? I think life is so hectic. It is so we say it every week, it's so busy, we have to make active choices. And it goes back to what we were saying. Was it last week that we talked about hobbies, or the week before?
Last week? I think it was last week, wasn't it? Yeah.
It was you know, it's that feeling that we need to fill our time, so we don't have these quiet moments where we think, oh, I'll pick up the phone and call a friend, or you know, you think, oh, I haven't got time to squeeze in a long conversation, so I'll just have a really quick call or something like that. It's that feeling that we just jam pack our lives full of stuff.
And it's all the stuff it's supposed to make our lives easier. So the internet and broadband and TV, streaming TV, but it fills our lives with more things, doesn't it? And it's like, I remember sort of, you know, I'm showing my age again, but I remember going back to sort of the early 80s, I'm going to be honest, the late 70s. But the neighbours, just everyone seemed to pop into each other's house for a cup of tea and a chat, and I loved that. Even though you know, I was just sort of witnessing it because our neighbours would come round to my parents and chat, and they'd ask how you were, and you'd hang out with their children, and you'd sort of play out together and fill your lives with things that are good for us, which is going out for the day and enjoying the sunshine and exploring the local, you know, exploring the woods. And we just seem to get busier and busier and spending less time with neighbours, especially.
Well, I can say it wasn't in the late 70s, but it was the early 2000s. We actually had that just around the corner at our old house. Was, you know, every day after the school run, before the school run, you know, friends would gather, and you know, just 3 or 4 friends of mine, between us we had, you know, 12, 13 kids, you know, and I loved it. I loved that. You know, we'd have a cup of tea, bit of cake, we'd catch up, the kids would play, we'd have days out together. It was exactly that. And I feel that it obviously gave me, you know, a lot to have, you know, these wonderful friends. But also, you know, my children were around that sort of relaxed kitchen table conversation. That, I mean, I loved it. And I think on a boat, you do have that sort of, you know, boat neighbours. They will pop in and have a cup of tea and, you know, a chat. You don't often find that in modern day living.
No.
You know, it's not something we do because, as we said, I think last week, our communities are often outside of the place we live.
So, and we all put up fences, don't we, for privacy, but then actually you're cutting out that thing where everybody used to chat over the garden fence. 6-foot fences should be banned.
It's funny, isn't it? Because like what the online world has given it. I mean, and we've touched on all these subjects. It's funny, isn't it? All these different areas that we talk about in these conversations, they all mesh into one thing. It's like a big puzzle, really. But what technology has given me is like 3,000 friends on YouTube. You know, that's what I feel like. I feel like I am abundant in connection and friendship. And that's why I love when we meet people who watch our videos, who see us as their friends. When we meet them in real life, it's just like a coming together. I love that. I love that.
Yeah, and it is again, it's that beneficial thing, isn't it? Because people meet us and they act like they're really chuffed, but we're just as chuffed to meet them. Really, it
is. That's that's a plus for technology, and that's what it gives us, that connection for all the down sides. I've just noticed that Pete has said regrets or life lessons to learn from. That's exactly what we were saying earlier, wasn't it? We don't see them as regrets. These are these are life lessons. So do you think we've explored regrets now? Do you think there's anything more to say on regrets?
I think I don't, because I think
finished it. No, I was just going to say I don't, because I think what Pete said and you've said as well, but it's a life lesson, and that's the thing. It's try not to have any and just learn from them and move and do something different.
I think when we keep our I want to say our mind strong. That's not the word. When we're well in all areas of our life, I think our resilience to deal with things is better. And then when we resilient, we don't we don't regret, because we take that with us. So I think mental health and well-being again is at the center of everything, because it helps us see things in a better way. As a life lesson. Wow,
doesn't it?
Say that again, Paul.
I think it gives us perspective. That it does put, like you say, we become stronger because we compare things to other things that are in life, and actually think, it's not such a big deal. I mean, obviously the things we talked about today are big deals, especially for you, Maxine. But it does put everything, it puts other things into perspective, doesn't it? That happens in our everyday life.
Yeah, definitely.
I've just before we go, I've just realized something that I want to share about regrets. And it was when we look back and we say, I regret this, this, that it didn't work out, that I did something else. We quite often will look back and see the thing that we regret with rose-tinted glasses. Like, if I'd have done this, my life would have been amazing, and that would have been fantastic, and all would have been good. But actually, we forget, as with most things in life, if we'd have made that choice, it wouldn't have been all good. There would have been other stuff that comes to it. So we need to watch out for looking back with these sort of rose-tinted glasses and thinking, if only I'd have made that decision, my life would have been great.
Definitely.
And it's always good to look forward, isn't it? It's always good to look forward to life than look back on life and regret things, definitely.
Now, here we go. Let's have a look at this.
I'm just going to say that one.
The more things you do, the more the chances of regret. So maybe it's a sign that you're taking chances and putting yourself out there. That is profound. And I think that's exactly it. The more things you do, the more chances for regret. I love that. And what a wonderful way to end on. I mean, thank you. How do we pronounce that? Is that
Bargains.
I think.
Sorry for the way we're pronouncing your name there, but that is wonderful. Thank you so much for that comment. That is brilliant.
And can I just add something very quickly? I think when we decided we wanted to get a narrowboat, we thought, do you know what? It's the things in life you don't do that you regret. So just let's do it. And that's why we decided we're going to get the narrowboat.
Yeah. Excellent.
Same for you, Maxine.
Sorry, I've just seen that comment from William Burgess. Life seems to be one big lesson that we will never be able to repeat.
Yeah, profound. Good stuff. Yeah, we might as well just do it all and see what happens. So, thank you so much for turning up today. I know we were a day late, but thank you for making time. I have enjoyed it, as I do every week. Thank you to everybody who's watched, who's commented, who's listened, who's just taken the time to listen without judgment as we share our biggest regrets. So thank you, everybody, and we'll see you next week. I think, Maxine, next week, shall we do the one you suggested, which is what 3 things would you take to a desert island?
I'm not here on Wednesday next week.
Oh, we'll save that then. We can't do that one without you. You're not here next week, so it's just me and you, Paul. So we'll cause chaos. We'll find something. We'll save that for the week after. So
enjoy the break, Maxine.
Thank you. We're just going up to York for the day on the train.
Lovely. Nice. Lovely. Well, are you around next Thursday?
Yeah.
Instead of the Wednesday, maybe we could do a Thursday. We'll sort that out. We'll sort that out and let you all know. But anyway, we will see you next week regardless. And thank you for watching. See you next week. Bye.
Thanks a lot. Bye, everyone. Bye.